Well, hello everyone. Good morning. In some parts of the world, good afternoon and good evening in other parts of the world. Today, I have the opportunity of being joined by Rachael Brooks-Donald. So, Rachael, thank you for joining me for this conversation. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you some questions, but we're absolutely thrilled that you were agreeable to join us. Today is all about us talking about World Cancer Day and the 21 Days to Impact Challenge that is currently being undertaken by myself and also the team at ICON as we continue to raise awareness around the global cancer burden and trying to do more to help people and to help people navigate their way through a cancer journey. And that's why it's so wonderful to talk to Rachael today, because Rachael is someone who's been through that journey and also has been able to access some components of her care close to home. And that's such an important part of what ICON's really trying to do in elevating that conversation around World Cancer Day. So, Rachael, welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for having me. It's my pleasure to share a bit of my story.
Good on you. Now, Rachael, if you don't mind me telling everyone, you're 36 years old. Yeah. You had breast cancer and you've also got a young son, and you finished your radiation therapy treatment with us at ICON Cancer Centre Redlands in August 2020. I imagine being diagnosed with cancer at such a young age would have been quite confronting. Would you mind telling everyone how you were first diagnosed with cancer and I guess that part of the journey?
Sure. I was 35 when I was diagnosed, and I was diagnosed at the very end of 2019, which now seems like a little way ago because we're now in 2021. It was a complete shock to be diagnosed with no history of breast cancer in the family. So that really scared me, and being so young. So I immedially I found the lump. So I was off to the GP and what can we do? What's the next step? And the whole process was done in about a week. The mammograms, the ultrasounds, the fine needle biopsies and the diagnosis within a week, and the referrals to the oncologist and the breast surgeon. No real time to sit and process it because it was such a whirlwind. And then I was full steam ahead and into treatment on the 3rd of January, 2020, started my chemo.
Wow. Wow. So, for yourself, you had to take that news on board, but also your loved ones. How did everyone react when you sat them down and you said, look, this is the reality of the situation?
It was complete shock for everyone. We lost my mum to lung cancer 16 years ago. So cancer is not a new thing for our family. Breast cancer certainly is. But I had my father and my stepmother with me at the GP when I was diagnosed, and it was just that dread and a bit of a sense of deja vu. We sort of knew what was going to come in terms of treatment, but you can't help but sit back and say, why? I was 35, very healthy, very fit. Cancer doesn't discriminate. So then there was the chain of phone calls that go to the brother and the stepsisters and the cousins and the aunties and the girlfriends. That was the hard bit. They say 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed. I believe it's now 1 in 7, but at that time it was 1 in 8 women would be diagnosed with breast cancer each year. And my close knit of girlfriends, there's 8 of us.
Yeah, wow.
And we had our Christmas get together and I said, look, this is what's happening. I'm the 1 in 8. So all of you need to go and get checked. So
I imagine that your friends and your family were incredibly supportive. Sounds like you have a really close family and a great close circle of friends.
Yeah.
What, from your perspective at that time, you obviously facing, treatment, surgery, chemotherapy and radiation oncology. What was your outlook on the next steps? What did you think about what you had to do to, I guess, I think this is always an interesting conversation. Not only are you the person at the centre of it all, you're also the person at the centre of the family and friends and sometimes guiding all of them through it as well. So what was the outlook like?
I was a bit numb at first and didn't really know how to sort of, okay, I've got to get the ball rolling. I'm very grateful that my stepsister is a clinical nurse at the Gold Coast Hospital in haematology. So she knows a fair bit about treatment. So she guided me a lot in terms of these are the best procedures. This is going to be what's going to work for your type of breast cancer. I was relaying all of that information to family, friends, to my work colleagues and my employers. This is how it's going to affect me, because it was about planning what I was going to be able to do next. I knew that chemotherapy was going to make me unwell, and at some point I wasn't going to be able to work at the capacity that I was working. So it wasn't just getting through that treatment on that day for that week. It was, okay, next week I'm going to feel awful. Next week it's going to be my down week. So that week I'm going to have to work from home. So it was forward planning with my employers and my colleagues and workload, because I continued to work through the entire treatment, and planning care for my son, because I'm a single mum, and having access to extra help. And then it was, okay, how am I going to go with the chemo? How am I physically going to cope, and mentally as well? No, and it's a thing. You look in the mirror and you don't look yourself anymore. And then the hair comes out, so you do the head shave and everyone comes over and has a drink and celebrates. That's what we did. We turned it into a party. Yeah. Everyone had a turn with the clippers.
Oh, wow.
It's how you cope. It's everyone needs a different coping mechanism, and making it part of the family was, and keeping it with everyone in the family was the way to do it.
Yeah. Now, you had radiation therapy with us,
yeah.
Icon, at the Icon Cancer Centre out at Redland. How was that experience?
It was a totally different experience to the chemotherapy and then having my surgery. I didn't know very much about radiation therapy before I went into it, and had my appointments with Dr. Lunn and the nursing team. And it was all explained and we're all set up. Again, it was a very fast process. It was like, let's get you in, get your planning session done. And away we went. And I thought, okay, I've done the hard stuff. I've done the chemo. The chemo was the hard stuff. And then I had my surgery and I'd recovered well from that, but it was a process. I thought, radiation, this is going to be the easy part. And just day by day, because it is an everyday treatment, it started to really drain me. So side effect wise, it was the tiredness, but they were also supportive and able to shift appointments if I just couldn't get there that early in the morning. Or and again, we went through it all with COVID. COVID was right when I was having all of my treatment. So the way the centre was running was probably different to the way I would ordinarily run. So they had extra protocols to follow and to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Great team at Redland, and I'm really, really proud of them. And it's great that they looked after you during that time. Now, you've got a young son. How did he find this journey of what his mum was going through, and how did you take him on the journey as well?
Yeah, So Seth is my son. He's now 7. He was 6 when I was diagnosed. We didn't share the news with him straight away because physically I didn't look any different. I wasn't sick while we were going through the diagnosis and the planning and the appointments. It actually wasn't until I'd had my first chemotherapy, and then I came home that day and my brother was here looking after him while I was at my first chemo. And we sat him down and basically explained to him that Mummy's sick. The medicine that they're going to give Mummy is going to make me feel more sick to get better. And his idea of sick was a head cold or a stomach bug, not, they don't, and rightly so, children that age should never need to know what cancer is. But look, he took it in his stride. He'd ask me some questions and then he would ask me, where's the cancer, Mummy? What does it feel like? How does it make you feel? And I would explain it as best I could to him. But you know what? He was never once scared. I would always, be as strong as possible. As a mum, you want to shield them from the big bad world. But, you know, sometimes he would, you know, if I'm a bit tired, slower getting out of bed in the morning, then he would notice. But you know what? He'd go and get me a wet washer from the bathroom and come and put it on my forehead because he thought that's what I needed, because that's how they recognize people being sick and people needing to get better. But then the head shave happened and he was involved in that, and he got the clippers onto Mum's head. He thought it was brilliant. And then he started to learn a little bit more about what cancer actually meant, but that the medicine, the chemo, was going to make me better. And he's stronger for it, I think.
Well, sounds like you're raising a fine young man who just wanted to look after his mum.
He does. Bless him. And when we're actually at Icon, one of the days I had to take him with me to one of my radiation sessions, just the timing of the appointments. And they brought him into the room and showed him how it all moved around. And he said, "Mum, do you get to go upside down?"
Let's sign him up to be a radiation therapist. In how old is he? 7. We'll give him
7 now. He's just gone off to first day of grade 3.
Yeah, we'll give him another 14 years and we'll sign him up. That's good. Wonderful to hear that he was involved in your treatment as well and saw what was happening to his mum. Rachel, what's been the most difficult part of your journey thus far?
Losing a bit of myself, in terms of I always thought of myself as a very strong person. I lost my mum when I was 20. She died of lung cancer. So I've always thought of myself as quite a strong person, both mentally, physically. I led a very healthy lifestyle, and all of that was taken away from me by something, not something that I did, not something that anybody's done. So it was hard to be mad. You can be mad at a certain person, but it's happening and you've just got to get over it. But it's really hard sometimes to wake up. And again, even just looking in the mirror and going, "Gosh, I don't even look like myself. I certainly don't feel like myself. I'm not functioning the way I could." Some days it was even difficult to drive my son to school, so a friend would come and collect him. And just that frustration of just not being able to do those things that you took for granted. That was just part of everyday life, let alone being able to go in the gym or run the 5K park run or things like that I used to try and do on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah. So how would you say your life's changed since your diagnosis? I think you've alluded to some of it there, but how has life changed?
Priorities definitely shift when you're diagnosed. And I mean, I was given the opportunity to be able to work from home, so that helped. But it wasn't important. That wasn't important for me anymore. I needed to work to earn income to look after my son, pay the mortgage. But that wasn't what was important anymore. They, live to work or work to live type scenarios. Diagnosis changes your priorities on everything. And if the laundry didn't get done for 5 days, the laundry didn't get done for 5 days. It didn't matter. It used to matter, but still trying to do some of the things, even if it was a fifth of what you were doing before. If I could get out and walk up the street to the corner store and back without feeling awful, that was an achievement for me. So I would still try and do those small things because it was one little step closer to getting back to what I was doing. I mean, I'm back in the gym, and we went on a big 6K walk down the waterfront yesterday.
Wow. Good on you.
Well, I'm building up to do the breast cancer walk again in March. So, but it takes away those things that you took for granted, and it's frustrating. There's no other way to explain it. It's frustrating and it's upsetting, but you've just got to get on with it. Yeah,
great answer. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I've got one more question for you, Rachel, and I think it's a good one. Now, having yourself now gone through a cancer diagnosis and what that means and the treatment, what advice would you give me, someone like me, on how we live our lives? Because I think from talking to you this morning, you've obviously learnt a lot. What advice would you give myself and the people who are listening about how we live our lives and what's important?
A phrase my father uses a lot actually comes to mind with this, and it's "don't sweat the small stuff." And it's something that I used to do a lot. But now, yeah, don't sweat the small stuff. For those women, buy the shoes and wear the shoes.
Yeah.
The gentlemen, buy the suit, wear the suit. You've got to do it, because you just don't know. You know, I was what I would say at the fittest I've ever been and the happiest I'd ever been in my life. And bam, cancer diagnosis out of nowhere. Where do you go from there? You got to hit rock bottom and then keep going up. So you've got to just do what you want to do in that moment, because now my diagnosis is behind me, my treatment's behind me, and it's about what I want to do next. And if I want to take a holiday, I will take that holiday. Once upon a time, it was, can I take the time off work? Will I be able to get Seth out of school? No, just do it. Yeah. You've just got to, and you've got to put your chin up and just live life.
Good on you. Rachael, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful answer. And as I said, these types of conversations are so important for people who are watching, people who might be going through what you've been through, or people who have a family member going through what you've been through, or indeed people who don't know it yet but will go through this. So the conversations are really important. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, because what you've done today is, again, raise the conversation and let people know that, you know, World Cancer Day is a really important day. We've got to talk about it. We've got to be able to do more. We've got to help as many people as we can. So, Rachael, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and all the best for your future. I can't wait to hear about you and Seth going on a wonderful holiday, and I know it'll be a most joyful one.
COVID permitting, it'll be a Hamilton Island holiday, I think.
Good on you. Well, thank you, and lovely to talk with you.
Thank you, Mark.